to the computer. Welcome to another marketing strategy session, and all of you will be graced by this gentleman here. Brian has built a network that is something to see. The Black Speakers Network. He is the master when it comes to speaking, the master when it comes to networking, and I'm happy just to have him on. So thanks for spending a little time with me today, Brian.
Absolutely, Jeff. Thank you so much, man. Thank you for waking up early with me to get this rolling. I am super excited to chat with you. You know, I love marketing and anything connected to like the areas that you touch, man. So I'm excited about the conversation.
Great, man. And you built Black Speakers Network's been coming across my inbox for years. And,
okay.
You know, and I attend some of the events that you have or some of the speakers have coming on, and you've gotten in touch with some powerhouses. And, you know, it's funny because to you it's probably easy. To everyone else, it's probably like, how in the world did he get this person to actually speak at one of his virtual events, live events? You know, how do you get in touch with them? So I do want to dig into that a little bit, you know, especially with influencer marketing being such a big thing. And then a lot of people branding themselves and their businesses by these speaking opportunities. And they say public speaking is one of the most difficult things in the world to do. That's what they say, I guess. You know, for us that have gotten in trouble in school for running our mouths too much, it's not that hard. But, you know, I want you to touch on that. How do you basically market your business and market the speaking opportunities, whether it's the networking aspect or the actual being able to speak aspect of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we could dive into that. So, you know, just for the uninitiated, again, super excited to be here. Black Speakers Network, we are a global speaker development, empowerment, and training community. We do have a network now of around 15,000 current and aspiring professional speakers, as well as event planners and partners. And so our mission is to equip, connect, and inspire the next generation of Black professional speakers. And so I started the organization, Jeff, and you say you've been on the email list for years. So I'm sure you've seen our progression and, you know, starting off with like MailChimp and, you know, migrating platforms and all this other stuff that we've done. But yeah, I started in a bedroom. You know, I feel like everybody's startup story, it's either like you're in a bedroom, a coffee shop, or garage. Like if you're not starting from one of those three places, then you're not a real
or out your car.
Yeah. We can add the car. Yeah. You know, I was working in the back seat of my car, you know, stealing Wi-Fi from Wendy's, you know, whatever. So that was my case. Yeah, I was started in 2016. This is actually my second company. I had another company before that called Skills, which was along the same vein. It was focused on professional development and empowerment for professionals and entrepreneurs. We made absolutely no money because, you know, I was basically just running around Baltimore hosting events. But it taught me a lot about the speaking world, which is actually under a broader umbrella of information marketing, which we can get to in a little bit. But to go back to your question, you know, I started from these beginnings and it was just me. I appreciate the kudos. I mean, you know, talking about speaking and everything like that, I want people to know, and I always share with people that I was not the person that would have ever envisioned myself, not only as a speaker, but also like leading a professional speaker association. That wasn't me. I was a skinny kid from Baltimore, certified introvert, could not lead two people in silent prayer, Jeff, let alone try to lead an audience to anywhere. And so my entry point into professional speaking actually came in college. I went to a HBCU, Morgan State University.
Which one?
Morgan State University.
You didn't go to Hampton. You missed out.
I did not go to Hampton, but you know what? I got a lot of respect for the 757, Seven Cities. I got a lot of respect for the HU and the other HU, but we won't get into that. But
yeah, you're right. You said it right too. The other HU, because the real HU is Hampton.
we gonna get angry comments regardless. But here's the deal: I got love for all the HBCUs because the HBCUs are really like a proving ground, and it's a place where a lot of really powerful, not just businesses, but just creativity. And it's just like a place you build lifelong connections and everything like that. So I ended up at Morgan State on a path to get to engineering. I hit calculus 2 and realized, let me just go see what the School of Business is talking about, because this is getting a little bit too hard. And so I was kind of lost for a little bit while I was navigating my way through college, Jeff. And eventually I made my way into business school, but I was still kind of like a generalist. I wasn't trying to be an accountant. I wasn't trying to be a finance person. I wasn't trying to go into HR. I was just in business, hanging out. And then lo and behold, somebody said, hey, we're starting up this Toastmasters club. And I was like, oh, Toastmasters, what's that? It was like public speaking. And I was like, okay, well, I had done a little bit of public speaking, but my experience with it was always nerve-wracking because, again, introvert, pretty shy, pretty reserved, like was not trying to be the person in front of the audience. But I volunteered to speak at the very first meeting. And so in the summer of 2006, Jeff, if you had been sitting in this small little classroom in the Earl G. Graves School of Business and Management, you would have watch me walk to the front of the room to prepare to deliver my very first speech in Toastmasters. And you absolutely would have noticed my sweaty palms, my shaking voice. I almost walked out of the room during the presentation, like all this stuff happened. But to your point, public speaking, I don't know if it's one of the hardest, but it's absolutely the thing that people fear the most. Primarily just because we don't get a lot of experience with it. And so, and no one likes the fear. Like, we really don't have a fear of speaking. We more specifically, I think most people have a fear of being judged. Like, we don't want people to see us fall flat on our face, basically. And so I made it through my first presentation, Jeff, and that was kind of the beginning of my public speaking journey. I eventually graduated from Morgan State University. I went into corporate and navigated there for a few years. I worked for a major staffing recruiting agency. I ended up getting promoted a few years later to my dream job, which was corporate training and development. So I got to be basically a professional speaker for a living. And that introduced me to the training side of everything. And all of that was kind of like the catalyst for Black Speakers Network. And so I only go that far back in the story just to kind of bring you back to your question of, how does this marketing piece work? And I think it's important for people to understand that, when you're growing a business, everybody starts out and it's just you. And when I saw an opportunity for Black Speakers Network, really what I was just trying to create was a community. I now that I knew what speaking was, and I saw that, okay, there actually is a professional speaking industry of sorts. How do you transition into that? And so as I started looking out for groups and organizations that focused on speaking, I didn't really see too many in the Baltimore area, but I also didn't see any that were accessible or that really reflected people that look like me. And so that's why I was like, hey, we need a Black Speakers Network, and just started it. And so I think, part of our success, and, we could talk about branding or wherever the conversation goes, but I think just in the name itself, if you don't know jack about what we do, our mission statement, anything, but just the name Black Speakers Network is an incredible brand asset that we've actually had trademarked for that reason. Because, if you are Black, if you identify as Black, and you think you might want to be a speaker, or you are a speaker and you value community, you're probably at least going to take a look at what Black Speakers Network is about. And so I think the brand itself has helped to really, just open doors. But the other thing that I would say is partnership. And so initially, Jeff, I was not, even though I'd been a corporate trainer, like I said, I built skills, I'd done a number of different things. I was not the end all be all expert when it comes to the world of professional speaking. There are so many avenues to master, so many skills that I knew it was very important to cultivate a network and a community of people who had that deep expertise. And so those are the people I started reaching out to initially to help us get the ball rolling.
Hey, and that, it's amazing how your journey has literally stepped you into your greatness. The funny part about it is a lot of times we don't even realize that things in our past are basically preparing us for what's to come. So when you were in college and you said, okay, I need to be Toastmasters. Let me go ahead and get up there and speak. And I know they stumped you with those trigger words, those stop words. Man, that was the hardest exercise ever. It was like stopping the ums. Mine is, you know what I'm saying. Oh man, I used to, you know what I'm saying? And I would catch myself every time, but that stepped you up into saying, okay, well, speaking, that's a good avenue. And then as you propel from there and you got to become a trainer at the organization, okay, I understand how corporate training works and corporate speaking works and conferences work. And I understand how that works. And now you put it all together. So your business is run based on a lot of the past experiences that you've had, even though that might not have been the actual goal at the time.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times we're taught that, oh, here's the goal, the vision. Now put together the plan and follow the plan to your success. When a lot of it, you don't even know it's a part of the actual plan because you haven't planned it. It's just a part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a beautiful graphic that I see floating around on social media, and it's like two pictures on a middle line. And on the left-hand side, it's talking about success. And it says, you know, the caption is what most people think success looks like. And it looks like this line that just goes straight up in like a diagonal. And then on the right-hand side is like what success actually looks like. And these like loop-de-loops and squiggly lines, and you go back. Yeah. And that's really how it is. Like, I think there's any entrepreneur will tell you that there's no linear path to this thing. You could be pulling on skills, relationship, information that you learned decades ago and that you had no idea that was going to be deployed in a way. And that's really what that's really what a company is. That's really, you know, what when we say company or, you know, business, a lot of times we use the word organization. And the reason we use the word organization is because we are organizing, like a company is essentially organized information. It's organized talent, resources, technology, you know, creativity, all in a container, and it's deployed in service of a specific to meet a specific need in the marketplace. And so as you are going throughout your life, you are picking up these different things, and you don't know, and it's up to you at a later point to figure out how that information, those resources, those contacts will be organized in a way to actually deliver value in some capacity. So whatever you're doing right now, just know that there will be a time and place where you have the opportunity. Doesn't mean you always use it, but you will at least have the opportunity to leverage those things in some sort of meaningful way. Yeah,
and that's so true. That's so true. And it's good that you saw the opportunity as well in the Black Speakers Network. Something that you stated, I've noticed as well when I'm speaking around the world. I'll go to conferences and there's only 1 to 2 that look like us in every conference.
You talking about like the marketing conferences?
Yeah, I tell people, go look at the speakers lineup, and you will only see 1, 2, at most 3 out of 15 speakers. And you're like, why? Yeah. I know that the information is there, the talent is there, the knowledge is there. Why? And I think it comes with a combination of things, but it is interesting, you know, when you're at these events and you're like, why is it heavily one way? You know, and it's the same way in the boardroom in most companies. You know, it's so funny. They'll show like one picture of a person that's a CEO, but then when you're in that boardroom, it's like, yeah, there's only 1 or 2 of you here though, in this whole decision-making process. And so, you know, it's good that you saw that opportunity and you were like, okay, there's an opportunity here to actually build a company that helps a certain audience with their need. And that need is to get in front of people in a speaking capacity. So I'm providing that vehicle for you.
Exactly. Yeah, I think, I mean, I saw it because, and I think, you know, anytime you're talking about marketing, especially, like you should be your own target demo. first. Like you should be solving a problem that you have. And for me, yeah, I love community. Like I really wanted to be in a place where I felt comfortable, that I could get access to information. It was accessible. Like I didn't have a ton of money, even 10 years out of school, I still didn't have a ton of money. And so especially being a young professional, paying hundreds or thousands of dollars to, be a part of something just wasn't like feasible. And so that's one of the reasons, even to this day, I mean, you like our initial membership was $15 a month, and today it's still under $50 a month to be a part of it. So it's like $1 a day. So I think in general, we really wanted to make sure that something was financially accessible, because when we're talking about, Black Speakers Network, a lot of times we're dealing with the realities of the fact that although we have achieved a lot of economic progress collectively, we still are underserved in a lot of places. We're dealing with, economic challenges and first generation entrepreneurs. Like I didn't have anybody else in my family that had built a business, or, there's nobody with a legacy, a pedigree. There's nobody, Jeff, that is leaving me, hundreds of thousands of dollars in a trust fund somewhere to go off and just play around with it while I figure life out. Like, no, I was figuring life out in middle school, catching the city bus, trying to get myself back and forth, making dinner, all this type of stuff. So I think, the idea is to lower some of these barriers of entry, particularly for something like speaking, because you don't need a degree, you don't need any special credentials, you don't need any specific, there's no high barrier of entry. The only thing you need to figure out how to do is figure out your target audience. And we created a model for this in Black Speakers Network. We call it the 5M. So it's we help folks get clarity on your mission, your message, how to market, how to monetize, and how to manage your speaking business. And so those fundamentals are wrapped up into a book that we created called Speak Up. But at the end of the day, all of those things can be learned. In Toastmasters, we were learning the basics of speaking, as you mentioned, the filler words, but it's like, how do you create an effective opening, a body, a conclusion, vocal variety, hand gestures, storytelling? Like you can learn how to communicate a message effectively. You can learn how to target an audience effectively. You can learn how to, monetize a website, how to write copy, how to, build a community. All of these things can be learned, but you're never going to learn it if, one, you don't have access to the information. Well, even before that, you're not going to learn it if you don't even see yourself as like a viable career path. And so that's why I think from a diversity perspective, representation is important. I see Jeff, I'll be like, oh man, Jeff is amazing at marketing. Like I didn't know there were any brothers out here rocking the marketing space like that. I see you now. I'm like, okay, maybe this is something I could potentially do. And then you get into they listen to your podcast or see you on LinkedIn or something. They're like, oh, wow, there's a lot of information that I could start to digest. And so that's great. But information still in a silo doesn't move people to transformation. Information still needs to be contextualized in a way to make it make sense in your actual world. And that's where community comes into play. And so you really need all three: representation, information, and community. And then eventually that gives people an opportunity to actually do something and create some sort of change in their life. So you're absolutely right, man. So it's been a journey. The journey continues. And not to say, I think we need both. Like in your space, I guess the American Marketing Association is probably, one of the top professional associations. And so I'm not going to say, only have like a Black, marketing association or Black Speakers Network. We still need to, and, we continue to rely on and build partnerships like outside of the community, because knowledge is knowledge. You still want to be tapped into the best practices. You still want to, figure out like how you can take leverage the knowledge and skills of people that have been doing it for, decades or, whatever. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, when it comes to the community aspect, there are just realities that exist like in the Black community that may not be addressed or taken into account when you're dealing with some of the other groups. And so that's where
Yeah.
we focus on.
And that's a good point. I mean, because honestly, when you're taking just the communication aspect of it, and you're pulling from the experiences and the environments that you're used to, a lot of times you have others that will try to control the narrative based on their perception of how it is in that community versus somebody that grew up in that particular group. And they can now say, no, this is what this means. This is how this is. And we see it all the time. We see it all the time in media where there's other groups portraying the Black community and they're over sensationalizing it. And you're like, that is not how it is. Everybody's not, what is that movie the Wayans brothers did? Drink something. Don't be a menace by
the South Central while drinking the juice in the hood.
Yeah, it's like
Lee joint. Yep.
Exactly. It's one of those things where it's over sensationalized, but it's because of lack of knowledge of how it is. And you said something very interesting earlier about trust fund, and being able to take time to figure it out. Other cultures, trust fund, they know about at a young age. And I remember talking to some friends of mine that after college, they took a year off to travel the world to figure out what they want to do. First of all, I didn't know about trust funds until I was fully grown. I didn't even know what that was, until I was fully grown. And take a year off after college, I was working 2 jobs and going to college full time. So there was no taking days off. And it was like, you can do that? You mean to tell me you took a year off to travel the world to figure out what you wanted to do? But it's different environments. And, for somebody that does that, it's like, oh, well, you just take off, follow your passion, get a job, blah, blah, blah. To them, that makes sense because in their environment, that makes sense. In other environments, that does not make sense. So if I'm a speaker and I'm trying to talk to you about hustle and grind, it's easy to say, well, you can be successful. My dad only gave me $1 million to work with, and, I had to make it work. Versus I had to give my mom $300 to keep her lights on, and I'm trying to figure out how to make this work, but this is how I built a business when I had to support my whole family, extended as well, and build a business versus all I had to do was call my daddy's banker, and my dad vouched for me, and they gave me this measly little $1 million loan. It wasn't much, that type of thing. So it really is important to understand the environment and the narrative, and it's good that people that understand each other can collectively come together, share their experiences, build on that information, and then relay it to the world.
Yeah. And that's really what the heart of what Black Speakers Network is. And so, at the end of the day, we're providing 3 things from the speaking perspective. So we're there to provide training, resources, and opportunity. So that's kind of like our core business. We host training on a very consistent basis, as well as have like an archive of like hundreds of hours of training education around those 5 M's that I mentioned earlier. In addition to that, we bring together resources. So if people are looking for coaching or a speaker website or a PR firm or marketing or help with their brand, like we have an entire community of trusted partners that we could connect them with so they don't have to waste time trying to like find it on their own or, possibly work with somebody that doesn't really understand speakers or whatever. So we got resources, and then we also have opportunity. Most speakers are looking to just speak more, whether that's, and by my estimation, there's something like 30,000 speaking opportunities taking place like every single day, from conferences, workshops, seminars, podcasts, independently produced events. There are always opportunities to speak. And now when you add in the virtual component, I'm not just talking about in the US, I'm talking about around the world. And so we have so many opportunities to speak and leverage our voice, and people that are really looking for our thought leadership. And so what we do is bring together those meeting planners. A lot of people in Black Speakers Network who are members are also hosting their own events. We have an entire podcast directory where we amplify the voice of Black podcasters and provide opportunities to speak there, as well as individuals who are hosting, your traditional conferences, workshops, seminars, who are looking for speakers, panelists, MCs. We have people reach out to us that are looking for coaches to supplement their like performance management programs, within their organizations. And so we're diversifying, we're creating an opportunity to create diversity within the speaking training space. But also when you look across the industries that we serve and the respective sectors within those industries, whether that's healthcare, financial services, diversity, HR, what we're really providing as well is an opportunity to be able to cultivate these community of thought leaders who can then speak on topics that are of particular importance to the Black diaspora. And so, if we're looking at, inequities within healthcare, if we're looking at, how we're going to actually solve some of these really complex social, racial issues, I think the answer, we have folks that are PhDs, we have like medical doctors, we have folks that are really out in the world attempting to speak to and solve very complex societal issues that disproportionately impact people of color and especially Black people. And so at the end of the day, yes, we are, there to ensure that speakers have a place to find their voice and that they can access their tools and resources and training and opportunity. But we also, while we are building up that community, we're also creating a space where now we can then go back into the real world, if you will, and be able to speak truth and power and bring solutions to everybody else.
Okay. Now, when it comes to speaking, the last 3-4 years, everybody's like, you need to be a speaker to help your brand. You need to be, all around the world speaking as much as possible to help your brand. What have you seen over the past few years in regards to, like, I guess you would say coaches and authors and professionals and consultants and so forth, leveraging the speaking opportunity to increase their brand? Because you've been seeing it for a while now.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that's a great question, because essentially, when I say the word speaker, everybody has a different framework in their mind about what that means. To some people, it's just like, oh, that's a keynote. To some other people, that's like, oh, that's a trainer. And some other people are like, oh, that's a person that, hosts their own events. And the answer is yes. There are so many different ways that you could show up as a speaker. And I think it's really just going to depend on your goal as well as your business model. A lot of times people are interested in getting, paid speaking engagements, which is absolutely still a thing. Like, there are people that get paid lots of money to deliver keynote speeches. The problem is that if that's your only goal, then unless you already have some traction in a specific industry, if you're not already known as kind of like a go-to thought leader in the space, there aren't a lot of companies, organizations, colleges, and universities that are just going to, pay you $15,000 off the strength of, that's my fee, right? So and so you have to think about and also start to position yourself within specific industries in order to make that kind of money. And there are ways to kind of go after that and stuff like that. But on the other side, I think that there are many, many more like free/unpaid speaking opportunities that you can then strategically monetize on the back end. And so what I've been seeing, Jeff, is individuals starting to embrace that more and say, you know what, as long as I'm speaking in front of my target audience, it doesn't matter if I'm being paid or not paid up front, because I recognize that speaking is one of the best marketing tools in my arsenal to be able to build authority, to create brand awareness, and ultimately lead generation. Like if I go speak in front of an audience of 1,000 people, Jeff, and within that audience, people are consuming my information. I'm teaching them something. I'm creating an experience. And more importantly, like they now have awareness of who I am, what I do. They're going to follow you on social media more than likely. I'm probably going to give them something throughout the course of the presentation, a free download, a way to like something that's going to be valuable for them to consume. And now they're on my email list, and I can continue to nurture that relationship. And ultimately, you're probably going to have people in that audience that are going to remember me and then refer me as a speaker at some point later in the future. Like I've had people come back 5 years later after I delivered a presentation to a small little group of like 10 people, and I got a paid speaking opportunity years later just from that impression that I left on them. So I think what we've seen is this a divergence from this thing of, oh, I just need to get paid to speak, to now, okay, I understand the assignment. The assignment isn't to just get a check in your pocket and that's the end of it. Like the speaking, if you're saying, hey, I want to really make this a integral part of my long-term business strategy, then we're talking about a marathon, not a sprint. Speaking is absolutely a marathon, and the marathon looks like, hey, I'm going to run a little bit, and then I'm going to speak at this conference. I'm going to run a little bit. I'm going to speak on this podcast. I'm going to run a little bit. Boom. I got a keynote speaker. Great. I'm going to run a little bit. I'm going to deliver a training. I'm going to run a little bit and host my own webinar. I'm going to develop courses. I'm going to create on the back end books, audiobooks, downloads, masterclasses, programs. And again, this may look different for different people, but at the end of the day, as long as in marketing, we talk about this customer journey conversation. As long as you have identified your path that you want to take customers down and where speaking fits into that path, you're absolutely fine. And you can massage that path as we go. We are all like building a plane while we're flying it. So it doesn't have to be perfect. You just need to know kind of your goal and your approach. And I see a lot of people figuring that out. And that's what we've really been talking about within Black Speakers Network.
And I'm glad you talked about that, because there's two aspects of it. There's a speaking aspect, and then there's the actual business and the marketing aspect of it. And, that is something that a lot of speakers aren't focusing on, is the back end marketing aspect of it. And I'm glad you said about the customer journey, because that's something that's so important. You've got to take them down a good experience, a good journey that takes them to your end goal. It's not that you're going to say magic words and all of a sudden everybody's going to want to buy from you or do business with you. It's a journey that you take them. So in your program, you actually help teach how to do this information marketing setup and setting up a good marketing experience for speakers. And tying that in. So talk a little bit about that. I mean, we said we're going to talk about information marketing, and I'm glad that you segued into that by saying there's more opportunities than just being on stage and collecting a check for speaking.
Right. Exactly. So, our signature framework is called the 5M model. And so basically, I touched on a little bit earlier, but we can go into a little bit more detail, because essentially we're talking about building a speaker business. And so at the beginning of that, just like with anything else, we have to identify like what is our target audience. And so for us, within that first M of creating your mission, we are not only just identifying our target market, but we're actually identifying a more helpful, I think, definition, which we describe as a speaker sweet spot. And for us, that's the intersection between your passion, your area of expertise, and what the market is asking for. And so you remember those like Venn diagrams with the two circles and the circles that intersect?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if you picture that, but like instead of two circles, there's like three circles. That's kind of the model that we show for that. And so, you got to have your passion, because, that's the thing that you're going to love. It's nothing worse than going to, I'm sure a lot of people have been to like boring presentations or presentations where like the speaker is just like, they're kind of like dead in the eyes. You're like, oh man, when is this thing over? Like nobody wants to hear that person's talk for an hour. So if you're going to be a speaker, or if you're going to leverage speaking to grow, as a marketing channel to grow your business, you better like it. You better actually love it, because if you don't, you're going to burn out pretty quickly. On the expertise side, we really try to make sure that speakers are focused on speaking into an area that they already have a natural lane of credibility. Like you don't have to go out and read a bunch of books or watch a bunch of YouTube videos. Like, no, you already have, the receipts, as we say now, for this thing. And it doesn't have to be, you're the world's most expert, but it's like, okay, what is it now? Where have I actually created results in my life? Like some of us are rock stars with technology. Like we've helped our friends and families, set up servers and build computers and get online, or you've helped save somebody's marriage, or you've created, you've saved up, a nice nest egg for yourself, where other people are just focusing on getting out of debt. Like whatever it is that you have some life experience or some career experience. And so it's about tapping into that and figuring out what that's going to be. And then the third area is market demand. So like, what do people actually need? And also, what are they willing to pay for? And so I think taking the time, and this is like a slow down to speed up moment, because we have to look at internal factors of what is it about us that we want to bring to the world, and what is actually happening in the world, and not just what's happening now, but where is the world going from a technology perspective, from an economic perspective. So things like Google Trends are your friend with stuff like this, and really figuring out what is that intersection where you could carve out a space. A lot of people call it a niche, but like where you could carve out a space for yourself to use your unique skills, the things that you love, the things that you do well, and really super serve a specific part of the population. And so that's why, when people come into speaking and they're like, who do you speak to? They're like, oh, Jeff, man, I speak to everybody. I can speak to executives. I can speak to women. I can speak to church leaders. I can speak to colleges. I got a message. I'm the best. Like, no, like that's how you spin your wheels, because you never get known as the go-to person for anything. And so I think the best starting point along that model, we have an entire series of trainings that goes through all of this. But at the beginning, most people try to skip over the mission and they actually skip over a message too. People like to go right to the fourth end, which is monetize. Like that's all the way down the line. We can't monetize if we don't even know who we're talking to, because what's going to happen is you're going to go out trying to speak to everybody. Nobody's going to be listening. You're going to spend a ton of money on like Facebook ads and marketing and building websites. You're going to have a website that's pretty generic, that doesn't really speak to anybody. And then, you may accidentally get some speaking opportunities, but at the end of the day, you're going to be like spinning your wheels until you go, and you have to do rework to go back and like fix all of that. And so that's why we are mission, message, which is Toastmasters is still great for, but you're going to have to learn how to build your signature talk. You're going to actually you don't have to be the best speaker. I think we've all been to speaking conferences and things where people probably weren't the best technical speakers, but they walked away with an amazing check because they knew who their target market was. They had the other piece figured out. And so, but it's mission, message, how to market, which for us as a speaker, we're really honing in on things like, making sure that you have an effective, professionally written bio, that you have headshots, that you have speaker video, you have brand assets that speak to, who you are. We can actually find you online and that all that information is correct. You have things that we can actually share with others that demonstrate your credibility in the space. And then we can start talking about how to monetize. And for us, there's over 20 different ways that we can monetize your speaking brand once you have those things in place. And that includes everything from collecting a fee up front to building a signature course to creating products, services, merchandise, being able to create coaching programs, etc. Like there's no shortage of ways to monetize once you have those other pieces in place. And then the last M focuses on management. So that's kind of like your business 101. So making sure that you have systems in place, making sure you're paying your taxes, that you have accountants, like you're actually running your business like a business, speaker contracts, things of that nature. And so all five are absolutely necessary, and they're sequential when people are first getting started. But I think the main thing is, to make sure that people have just like a framework to step into, and that they have the right mindset when they're thinking about kind of building this.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not just because I talk so well, I can just jump on stage and make millions. So it's just not that simple.
Yeah, I mean, you can jump on stage, but because a lot of times people are like, oh, well, I just want to go speak, and that's fine, and that's good. There's a lot of different reasons why somebody might get invited to speak. One of the tests that we all often challenge speakers is you got asked to speak. That's great. Are you getting asked to come back to speak? What's your rehire rate? Are you getting referrals? Are you getting testimonials? Are people purchasing products and services? Are people hiring you for coaching? Like, what's happening after you take the stage? Like, we get so fixated on, hey, I got the opportunity. Okay, but what happened? And so, because that's the goal. And so if we're not creating transformation, like every time you get on stage, something good should happen. You should be getting referrals, testimonials. You should be growing your business. Like something should be happening. And if it's not, then we have to kind of go back and challenge if that was like an effective use of our time.
And that makes sense. That does make sense because, I know early on I had a challenge. You get on stage and you would talk and everybody would give you those 1 to 10s. I'm gonna give you 1,000. Oh, it was great. But at the end of the day, after the talk, what happened? If it didn't convert to any business, you got pats on the back, but not checks in the wallet. And so it's like, was I really that good? Everybody loves me, but nobody actually did business. And some of that came with not having the call to action, not structuring, not setting up a way for them to work with you in the future. They just consume the information. So, the business of speaking is so much more than just getting up on stage and grabbing the mic, because I'll tell you, it was a great feeling early on in the career to get on stage and rock the mic and have everybody cheering and standing up and you dropping the mic and but at the end of the month, when the invoices don't come calculate, it's like, wait a minute, was I really that good? It's sort of like when you was a baby, when you was a child, and everybody said you was cute, but nobody would date you. It was like, am I really that cute?
Yeah, like what's going on? And I think people, Jeff, and some of that is okay. Like when you're just starting. Like and that's why I love Toastmasters so much, because that's the proving ground. Like that's the place where you could go practice. Like there's always an open stage for you to visit a club or you get feedback in the form of evaluations and things of that nature. So if you want to go somewhere and practice, that's the place to do it. And it's designed so that when you go do it for real, you're not worrying about as much the mechanics of what you're saying. You could focus on the actual message. So I call it connection over content. Like when you're speaking in front of a live audience, you don't want to be worrying about trying to figure out if your subjects and your verbs agree. You want to be worried about whether your message is actually landing and making sure that you have the things like you're talking about set up with a call to action and making sure that all of that stuff is there. And so you're absolutely right. I think at the end of the day, you can kind of set yourself up for failure if you're just thinking that the idea is to go speak and to speak as many people as possible. I think initially some of that is validating, but you're only going to do that for so long before you run out of time, money, or energy, and then you're ready to go do something else. Yeah, and a lot of speakers burn out like that too. A lot of speakers, they get started, somebody asked them to go speak, and they did it, and then they keep doing it, but they really hadn't take the time to clarify their speaker sweet spot. They didn't get connected in with the community. They hadn't realized that, to make the transition from a public speaker to a professional speaker takes a level of intention. And so they would just quit, thinking that people may not need that message. And that's not the case. People absolutely would need that message, but there's an aspect of this that you have to create a silo for people to step into, a container, and that's packaging. And so it takes time, and it takes a little bit of effort and energy, and honestly, in some cases, like, it takes a level of investment. Like, there are a lot of people at the time of this recording, the price is actually going up in November, so I don't know when this comes out, but whenever whether it's 25, let's say $250 a year, $250 a year to join Black Speakers Network. There are people that will look at that and be like, well, why would I pay $250 for, a membership? Or why would I pay, $300 for like headshots? Or why would I pay, $500 for a speaker brand video? And I'd be like, all right, you do not have to. You absolutely do not have to. But, if you're not willing to, let's say, invest over a course of a year, $50,000 into your own brand, whether it's your company, your speaking ability, get some coaching, building up brand assets. Like, if you're not willing to invest, let's say $50,000, why would you expect to earn 100,000 if you're not willing to invest 50 or 25, or in some cases 10 or 5? Like, you want a 2x multiplier on something that you haven't even put in. Like, in what financial vehicle? We were just talking about trust earlier. Like, I don't know any place, I don't know any stock, like even crypto now, which is crazy. Like, you can't put in just nothing and expect to get this like massive return. And so at the end of the day, it's still a business. And I think that's some of the things that we kind of have to break down. And again, it goes back, we actually have a 6th secret M that's not in this book, but we talk about a lot in BSN, because the 6th secret M is mindset. There's a mindset that undergirds all those 5 M's, and it shows up at every part of your business. Like, if you are not willing to invest in yourself, if you're not willing to take the time and understand your audience, if you're not willing to actually master your craft, then that stuff is going to show up. Like, your mindset is going to show up on stage. It's absolutely going to show up on your calendar, and ultimately is going to show up in your bank account. Yeah. And that makes all the sense. If you don't take yourself serious, nobody else will. And that's really it. So you taking yourself serious means you need to invest in yourself. You need to take the time to master whatever you're doing. But if you're not, then it's kind of transparent, and people will be like, well, that person really isn't that serious. Will they be that good at what they say that they do? Because they're not taking it serious. So that's great. That is great. But everybody, y'all need to get on this before this price go up in November. But even though it goes up, I mean, if it's going to get your business where it needs to be, the investment will come back. Whether it's a speaking or one other way of 20 ways to monetize. So at least 20 ways. But I mean, our price goes up every year because it has to, so it doesn't matter if you could be listening to this in 2025, the price is going up. Like, it doesn't matter. But the thing is, you need to just think about, like, and again, this isn't for BSN, but this is just in general. like, I don't know anybody that just gets to success in a silo. Like, it's very difficult to do it. What we're about is accelerating your, like, flattening that learning curve and accelerating what you already have going on. It's very rarely that we're working with people who are starting from zero. And some people are, they're like, I don't know what I want to speak about. I don't know who I'm speaking to. I just know that I want to speak. There's some people like that, but it's in the minority. Most people come to us, they already have a decent idea of who they want to speak to. They've already been speaking. They've probably have held their own webinars. They're going live on social media. They have like probably a semblance of a website, or have already built out programs. They probably have already monetized their message to some degree. And so it's not about that. It's more so like going back and filling in some gaps where necessary, so we can accelerate you. Like, if you haven't made it to six figures yet, that's your next benchmark. If you've made it to six figures and you're trying to now scale that and keep it sustainable, so you don't have to start over again every single month, then maybe that's the new benchmark. If you've already hit that, now maybe you're trying to get to seven figures. And so I think regardless of where you are in that journey, there's an opportunity for us to be able to serve you. But you really have to kind of think about and kind of get out of this mindset that you're going to do it all by yourself. Because if you do end up doing it by yourself, I can guarantee that it's going to take a lot longer. It's going to be much more expensive. It's going to be more painful. And then honestly, it's just going to be like a lot less fun. Like, I love talking with people like you, Jeff, who, like, we have this mastermind in BSN called Sunday Seminar, where we just go around and we talk about what's working. We talk about the stupid stuff we did, like the lessons learned, and then we have a good time. We figure it out along the way. And so, like, if I'm in an airport heading to a speaking opportunity, I think it's so cool to be able to like drop in a picture of me sitting in the airport, and then there's somebody else, like I'm in BWI, there's somebody else flying out of Tampa, there's somebody else flying out of Toronto, there's somebody else that's coming back, just delivered their first TED Talk, there's another guy or lady that just finished, dropping, the mic on like a webinar. And so we've kind of created this community where even if things are going well or not going so well, you have other people that are kind of in it with you. Entrepreneurship, by its very nature, is a very lonely journey for a lot of people. And so I think being able to rely on this and have a place where you can go and get fed, as well as kind of share resources and information about what's working well for you, is kind of the goal. So that's what we've been focusing on.
Hey, that is wonderful. And I caught your mindset with that when you were saying you're at the airport with going to a speaking opportunity versus a speaking gig. And a gig means job, and jobs aren't usually liked. So opportunity is rewarding. So, that goes into that mindset. So just wanted to know I picked up on that.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. I never really, I don't really use the term gig for that reason, even though, like you said, we're kind of in like the gig economy and all this, but like it sounds very transactional versus like opportunity. We respond in every other sector of the economy. There's it's seen as kind of like the beginning of something, like I'm about to establish a new relationship. And that should be the mindset that we adopt anytime we're taking the stage.
Cool. Well, on that note, I thank you. We're coming up on the hour, so I really appreciate you sharing this information. Thank all you viewers and listeners to consuming this information. And if you ever want to just pretty much get your game together when it comes to the speaking industry, or getting yourself together as a speaker, leveraging that as your marketing vehicle, reach out to Brian and the Black Speakers Network. You can reach them at blackspeakersnetwork.com. If I'm correct, I think it's .com. It's not .net, but I think you do got .net as well, don't you? I think you do.
I think we just bought all of them, but yeah. So but
I think you do got .net as well.
Just Google.
But you'll find definitely blackspeakersnetwork.com. Get on his mailing list at the very beginning so you can see some of these wonderful speakers in action. And like I said, it really will help. Great information being passed. Brian shared some real good insights today, and I'm very grateful, Brian, that you shared them.
Absolutely. My pleasure, man. Anytime, and certainly excited about connecting with folks. And by the way, we do have a free community on Facebook as well. So like you said, blackspeakersnetwork.com, you can get connected with that. We're just here to share information. We are literally looking to serve the next generation of Black professional speakers. So as we always say in BSN, keep speaking up, because your audience awaits, and we will see you on stage. Thank you, Jeff, for the interview.
Great.